Are you guilty of these 4 toxic habits? The harsh truth about unreliability, gossip, complaining, and interrupting. We all have bad habits we're not proud of, don't we? Those toxic behaviors that keep rearing their ugly heads, no matter how hard we try to shake them. I'm talking about the harsh realities of being unreliable, engaging in malicious gossip, constantly complaining, and rudely interrupting others. Yeah, I know it stings to call these out so directly, but avoiding the truth benefits no one. The real question is, are you guilty of indulging in these spirit-sapping habits? If so, it's time to take an unflinching look in the mirror. Because here's the cold reality. Unreliability tortures your credibility and poisons relationships. Gossiping creates a cloud of distrust everywhere you go. Constant complaining is like dragging an anchor behind you, weighing you down with negativity. And interrupting others? It's the height of disrespect, strangling communication, and real connection. Ouch, I know. But staying in denial helps nobody. The path forward requires brave self-awareness. So let me be brutally honest with you, my friend. If you want to elevate your character, nurture uplifting relationships, and genuinely be a light in this world, you must get radically real with yourself about these toxic habits. It won't be easy, but taking that first step is powerful beyond measure. If you're ready to lace up your boots for that journey, keep watching. Because overcoming these demons is absolutely possible. 1. Gossiping. Let's face it, gossiping can be tempting. We all hear those juicy tidbits and feel the urge to share. But have you ever stopped to consider the dark side of this habit? Gossiping might start as a way to bond or feel connected, but it can quickly turn toxic. Imagine this. You're the topic of someone's whispers. Not a pleasant thought, right? It took a lot of painful lessons to realize just how damaging it was when I had a best friend known as Mark. Mark and I were thicker than thieves. Since childhood, our secrets have been locked away in a vault of unspoken trust. So Mark started losing weight and tiring easily. I was the first to notice. After weeks of gentle prodding, Mark confessed his biggest fear. A rare, aggressive illness the doctors were desperately trying to fight. I was devastated. I promised secrecy, my heart swelling with a fierce protectiveness. We became even closer, Mark finding solace in my unwavering support. In turn, I felt an unfamiliar weight of responsibility. I accompanied Mark to treatments, researched the illness, and became a shield against Mark's anxieties. One evening, at a gathering with our friends, the conversation turned to health scares. I, usually guarded, found myself blurting out, "Did you guys know Mark has been battling this crazy illness?" The room fell silent. Mark's face drained of color, his eyes wide with betrayal. Realizing my colossal error, I stammered an apology, but the damage was done. Mark left the gathering abruptly, and I followed him home, a storm brewing within him. Mark wouldn't answer the door, so I poured my regret through a text, begging for forgiveness. The reply was a single word: "Gone." I clawed panic. I didn't know where Mark went, but it was clear that the trust was shattered. Days turned into a torturous week. I tried contacting Mark relentlessly, but his calls went unanswered. I gnawed at the guilt, turning into a full-blown fear for my friend. Finally, he responded with a text. "We can't be friends anymore. My illness is a fight I need to face alone." I understood. Mark needed to share. My inability to keep the secret had stripped Mark of his control. The isolation Mark desperately wanted to avoid had become his only option. I was left with the wreckage of his actions, the weight of a broken promise heavier than any secret. The incident became my turning point. I learned a harsh lesson about trust and the importance of boundaries, even with the closest friends. I carried the memory of Mark hurting as a constant reminder. Secrets, once shared, have a life of their own, and the cost of gossip can be the loss of something precious. And while I never saw Mark again, the silence that followed became a deafening echo of the trust one had shattered. Gossip can damage trust and reputations, leaving a trail of hurt feelings in its wake. Stoics like Epictetus teach us to focus on our own character and not meddle in the affairs of others. Stoics believed in uplifting and constructive conversations instead of gossiping, and focused on positive dialogue that builds people up rather than tearing them down. We all do it. Stuck in traffic, the weather's awful, the internet is slow. The urge to complain can be overwhelming. But have you ever stopped to consider the impact of this negativity loop? Too chronic complaining can be a drag, not just for you, but for those around you. It can drain energy, fuel negativity, and hinder your ability to find solutions. My friend Arnold was a connoisseur of complaints. From the lukewarm coffee in the morning to the atrocious weather forecast, no detail escaped his critical eye. My friends and I, bless our patient souls, we used to laugh it off. "There he goes again," we'd say, shaking our heads with a smile. But lately, the smiles were strained. One dreary Tuesday, as Arnold launched into a tirade about the atrociously slow internet, which, ironically, was caused by his excessive online complaining, our friend Maya finally snapped. "Arnold," she said, her voice surprisingly firm, "don't you ever get tired of being negative?" Arnold blinked, momentarily stunned. He hadn't considered that complaining was his way of life. Maya continued, "It's like a black hole, Arnold. Your negativity sucks the fun out of everything." She gestured to us, whom we were trying, and failing, to hide their boredom. Arnold felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't meant to bring everyone down. He just liked things to be perfect. The realization hit him like a cold shower. His constant negativity wasn't just harmless grumbling. It was actively pushing his friends away. That night, staring at the flickering cursor on his, now perfectly speedy, internet, Arnold made a decision. He wouldn't become a Pollyanna overnight, but he'd try. The next day, he started small. When the barista forgot his extra caramel drizzle, he took a deep breath and politely asked for it. To his surprise, the barista smiled and apologized. It wasn't easy. Old habits die hard, and Arnold found himself slipping into his familiar grumbling routine several times. But Maya's words echoed in his head, and he'd force himself to reframe the situation. The traffic jam, a chance to listen to a new podcast, the burnt toast, an excuse to try that fancy avocado recipe he'd bookmarked. Slowly, a shift began. Arnold noticed a lightness in his step, a genuine joy in everyday moments. But the most rewarding change was in his friendships. Maya's smile was back, brighter than ever. We as friends started initiating plans, and our outings were filled with laughter, not complaints. One sunny afternoon, as they sat at their favorite cafe, with perfectly brewed coffee, of course, Arnold looked around at his friends, their faces lit by genuine happiness. He realized that true joy wasn't about a perfect world, but about appreciating the good and finding humor in the imperfections. And for the first time in a long time, Arnold felt truly content. Not because everything was perfect, but because he'd chosen to focus on the good, and that, in itself, was pretty darn perfect. Remember, complaining is a habit, and like any habit, it can be broken. By taking conscious steps to challenge negative thoughts and focus on the positive, you can create a more optimistic and empowered you. Stoicism offers a great perspective on why complaining is a bad character trait. Here's how. Stoicism emphasizes focusing your energy on things you can influence, like your thoughts, reactions, and actions. Complaining dwells on what's outside your control, like weather, traffic, or other people's actions. This reinforces a sense of helplessness and negativity. Complaining often stems from negative emotions like anger, frustration, or sadness. It's a mental drain. It takes energy that could be directed towards finding solutions or simply enjoying the present moment. Also, chronic complaining blinds you to the good things in your life. Stoicism encourages acknowledging these emotions but not letting them control you. By expressing negativity, you risk spreading it to others and creating a toxic environment. Encourages using your mental resources wisely, cultivating gratitude for what you have, even during challenging times. Here's an analogy. Imagine your mind as a garden. Complaining is like planting weeds. They choke out the positive aspects of your life. Stoicism teaches you to cultivate a garden filled with flowers of optimism, resilience, and gratitude. Unreliability is a character flaw that can have far-reaching and damaging consequences. At its core, being unreliable means failing to deliver on commitments or follow through on promises. It's a breach of trust that can strain relationships, hinder professional growth, and ultimately undermine one's credibility and reputation. In today's fast-paced world, where so much relies on effective teamwork and collaboration, unreliability is a major liability. Whether it's missing deadlines, neglecting responsibilities, or simply not showing up when expected, unreliable behavior disrupts the flow of productivity and leaves others to pick up the slack. I've got a personal story about this. A workmate known as Daniel. He was a chronic almoster. He almost met deadlines, almost kept promises, almost showed up on time. At work, his colleagues gritted their teeth as his "just give me another hour" became a daily refrain. Missed meetings with clients became a liability, and his boss, Ms. Garcia, held a permanent furrow in her brow whenever Daniel's name was mentioned. Home wasn't much better. Birthday dinners were forgotten. Movie nights turned into solo marathons of reruns. Sarah, his patient girlfriend, shouldered the brunt of his unreliability. A planned weekend getaway became a last-minute cancellation due to a work emergency, which turned out to be a video game binge. One Tuesday, the house of cards Daniel had built came crashing down. Ms. Garcia called him into her office, her face a thundercloud. A crucial presentation, entrusted to him, was a mess. He'd almost finished it, but almost wasn't good enough. The client, a major investor, pulled out, citing a lack of confidence in the team's ability to deliver. Daniel felt a pit open in his stomach. He wasn't just letting Ms. Garcia down, he was letting down his entire team. Shame burned in his throat. That night, his girlfriend, Sarah, sat him down. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke. "It's not just about the missed dinners, Daniel. It's about the lack of respect. You make promises you can't keep, and it hurts." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. He saw the disappointment mirrored in Ms. Garcia's face, the frustration etched on his colleagues. He wasn't just unreliable, he was inconsiderate, selfish. That night, a seed of change was planted. Daniel woke up early, a newfound determination coursing through him. He apologized profusely to Ms. Garcia, Sarah, and his team. He laid out a clear plan to rebuild trust, taking full responsibility for his shortcomings. He started small, arriving early at work, diligently completing tasks. He communicated openly, managing expectations. Slowly, a sense of accomplishment bloomed within him. He finished the presentation, not almost complete, but polished and professional. The client was impressed with the team's turnaround. At home, date nights became a priority, not an afterthought. Sarah, hesitant at first, began to smile again. Her trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, but with each kept promise, each on-time arrival, the foundation grew stronger. Daniel's journey wasn't easy. There were relapses, moments of wanting to fall back into his old patterns. But the memory of that empty pit in his stomach, the hurt in Sarah's eyes, kept him going. He learned the hard way that reliability wasn't just a character trait, it was a cornerstone of respect, success, and love. He wasn't just almost a better person. He was becoming one responsible action at a time. The Stoics placed great emphasis on living a virtuous life aligned with reason and nature's laws. Being unreliable is a vice that goes against the virtues of integrity, self-discipline, and responsibility. The Stoic path calls us to strive for the highest ethical conduct in all our affairs. As Epictetus stated, "On the occasion of every accident that befalls you, remember to turn to yourself and inquire what power you have for turning it to use." When we are tempted to be unreliable, we must turn inward and ask if this aligns with our core values and principles. The Stoics would counsel that when we make a commitment, we must see that through to completion using our willpower and self-discipline. Only then can we influence the world through our dependable character. For interrupting others. We've all been there. You're mid-sentence, bursting with an idea, when someone cuts you off. It's frustrating, disrespectful, and throws a wrench into the flow of conversation. But interrupting isn't always intentional. Sometimes, enthusiasm or a simple lack of awareness can lead us to talk over others. I have a friend known as Roger. He was a human exclamation point, a walking, talking interrobang. Conversations with him weren't exchanges of ideas, they were obstacle courses where his interruptions were the hurdles. He'd barge into sentences mid-thought, with his own brilliant, or so he thought, observations, leaving the original speaker flustered and unheard. At work, Roger's colleagues tiptoed around him, their presentations peppered with nervous pauses, waiting for the inevitable interruption. Important meetings devolved into battles for airtime, leaving decisions half-baked and deadlines missed. Roger, oblivious to the frustration he caused, considered himself a lively contributor, a man brimming with ideas. His home life wasn't much better. Dinner conversations turned into Roger monologues, punctuated by the occasional aha from his increasingly exasperated wife, Sarah. Planning their dream vacation became a Sisyphean task. Every suggestion Sarah made was met with Roger's better idea, leaving them both exhausted and frustrated. One evening, Abby snapped. Roger, mid-sentence about the perfect beach resort he'd found online, without consulting her, was met with a stony silence. "Roger," Abby said, her voice tight, "when was the last time you actually listened to me?" Roger blinked, genuinely surprised. He loved Abby, he wanted her to be happy. But the truth, when he finally admitted it to himself, was that he didn't really listen. He just waited for his turn to talk. A wave of shame washed over him. He looked at Abby, her face etched with disappointment, and saw the damage his constant interruptions had caused. That night, Roger made a vow. He'd become an active listener. The next day at work, when a colleague began a presentation, Roger forced himself to stay silent. It was agonizing, his mind buzzing with potential interjections. But he remained quiet, taking notes, genuinely absorbing the information. At home, during dinner, he actively listened to Abby's ideas about the vacation. He even suggested a compromise that incorporated some of her desires. To his surprise, Sarah smiled, a genuine, happy smile. The road to becoming a good listener was long. Roger had relapses, interrupting instincts ingrained by years of habit. But with each conscious effort, it got easier. Slowly, conversations started to flow. At work, colleagues relaxed, their ideas were heard, and decisions were made collaboratively. At home, Roger and Abby rediscovered the joy of sharing thoughts and dreams. Their vacation wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a testament to the power of listening and the joy of a conversation where everyone gets a turn to speak. A fundamental Stoic virtue is self-control or self-mastery over one's impulses and desires. Interrupting others often stems from an inability to restrain the urge to interject before the other person has finished speaking. The Stoics would counsel cultivating the restraint and self-discipline to resist this impulse until it is truly our turn to contribute. As Epictetus stated, "On the occasion of every accident, event, that befalls you, remember to turn to yourself and inquire what power you have to turn it to use." When we feel the urge to interrupt, we must pause and exercise our reason over rash reactions. The truth has been laid bare. Those toxic habits of unreliability, gossiping, complaining, and rude interruptions, they're polluting your life and holding you back from being the best version of yourself. But now you can't unsee what you've seen here today. You know deep down which of those behaviors have been creeping your relationships, eroding your reputation, and sapping your positive energy. The question is, are you finally ready to douse those demons and walk the path of character renovation? It won't be easy, I can't sugarcoat that. Extinguishing habits that have become ingrained patterns takes relentless self-awareness and determination. You'll need to attack this issue with the same warrior spirit as achieving any difficult goal in your life. But think about the alternative. Resigning yourself to a life of broken promises, poisonous rumor spreading, incessant groaning, and conversational bulldozing? Is that really the legacy you want to uphold? You're better than those toxic habits, and you know it. The potential to level up into a stellar human, reliable, trustworthy, positive-minded, and respectful of others. It's already inside you, just waiting to be unleashed. So I'll leave you with this. The window of opportunity won't be open forever. You can keep hitting snooze on self-improvement, or you can rise up right now and start blazing a new trail. Which path will you choose? The downward spiral of toxicity, or the upward journey towards becoming an elevated, admirable person? Don't just talk about it, be about it. The decision has been placed before you. Now it's time to make the choice to transform. Those are the stakes, my friend. Heed this wake-up call, or keep hitting snooze. Over to you. What's it going to be?